All My Maplelea Dolls by Carrie, an American girl in Mexico, made by an adult for other adults. Let's have a great discussion in the comment section. Remember to be kind. Let's talk about ideas and not people. Hi, this is Carrie. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about the 18-inch dolls in my collection that are of the brand Maplelea. I have three different types of 18-inch dolls. I already did a separate video on my American Girl dolls. This is my second video on my Maplelea dolls, and then there will be a third one on my third brand, which is a Life of Faith doll. So we want to start today about talking about Maplelea. This is a Canadian doll company that has been around since 2003, so not nearly as long as the American Girl brand, which is celebrating 40 years this year. And it is a catalog company. This is its most recent catalog. Their catalogs come out in September or October every year, although their primary sales venue is online. Somewhere I thought, oh, here it is. Only available online at maplelea.com. So the catalog is great for flipping through and getting ideas, but if you want to know what's currently in stock and currently available, you really need to go online for that. And they do have releases between catalogs. So the catalog is not the be-all and end-all. This is Charlesy. I do have this doll, I have this outfit, and I have her chickens. So this is the brand. Some highlights about Maplelea is that they really have their educational commitment, the same that American Girl started with, but they have really kept it, and it is amazing, and truly one of the reasons I continue to go back to this brand. I'll talk about that when I talk about my first doll and how it sucked me in. But just keep in mind that there is an educational component to their dolls and the support materials around their dolls. The quality of these dolls is outstanding. Their wigs are rich and full, wonderful to touch and work with. Their clothing is much higher quality than the current American Girl clothing. I would say it is much more similar to what the traditional American Girl clothing is. And they make the most amazing shoes. And here are two full pages of just shoes from this current Maplelea catalog. Now, some American Girl collectors will complain that the Maplelea shoes don't fit the American Girl doll shoes exactly. The Maplelea foot is a little narrower and a little longer than the American Girl foot. The newer American Girl foot is shorter than it used to be. So I have found that the Maplelea shoes fit the older dolls, and they fit that third brand, the Life of Faith dolls, which have a foot that is even longer than the Maplelea foot, much closer to the traditional American Girl foot. But if you are looking for quality clothing and shoes, even if you don't buy the dolls, the Maplelea stuff is just outstanding. Like many doll collectors, I watch other doll collectors on YouTube, and two of my early follows and continue to be two of my favorite channels are Just Dream Studios and Disblaine, Disblaine. And both of these are Canadian YouTubers, and both of them have American Girl dolls, but both of them also have Maplelea dolls. So my introduction to the Maplelea brand came from these two other YouTubers. And so as I watched and listened, I got more and more curious, And I believe it was Sophia at Just Dream Studios that made a general recommendation that if you were brand new to Maplelea and you were only going to buy one doll, that you should buy Sila. And Sila is the Inuit doll from Nunavut. And so that is what I did. So in December of 2024, my very first Maplelea doll came to live with me, and it was Sila. The first thing I noticed when I opened the box was how long her eyelashes were. And they were so long, it was jarring at first. But within a day or so, I got used to it. And I think she is absolutely a beautiful doll. I think that the sculpt captures the Inuit face so clearly. She definitely has the indigenous look. She is different from the other dolls. Her hair is thick and rich, and her eyelashes, I think, just add to her charm. So Maplelea dolls come with story journals, and this was my introduction to Sila. They all come because Canada is officially a bilingual country. All of the journals come in both French and English. And Sila's journal comes additionally in a third language, which is the Inuit language, which I don't know how to pronounce what it is actually, but it is the native language of the Inuit people. And so that's kind of fun. But as I read her story about how she lives and her family, it was just all this new information that I was not aware of. And I was already aware of injustices that our indigenous population in the United States had faced over the years, including things like the residential schools. But some of that pain is still very much alive in Canada as well. And one of the beautiful things about this journal, or this educational component, this absolute commitment to talking about what life is like in the different provinces for these different children today, is that it raised questions, it raised curiosity. So one of the things that I did because of Sila is I subscribed to a YouTube channel called APTN News. APTN News. And this is basically a local news association that focuses on being sure that they're covering the stories that are of interest and applicable to the indigenous population. I think you would find it fascinating. And because of that, sometimes I am outraged for not just what has happened in the past, but to some of the ongoing injustices and inequalities that face these first citizens, these first population of both Canada and the United States. So Sila gave me a new awareness of the Inuit people, an appreciation for their culture, and has cultivated an ongoing interest in how they are being treated today. Again, she's a wonderful doll. I'm glad she was my first doll because she lives in a culture that is bridging both tradition and modernity, and her collection and her stories in her journal reflect both of those things. So it's Christmas time. Sila is new in my household. My son is visiting. We'll have Christmas with the girls the next day. And we decide we're going to watch a movie. And So we are going to watch Roadhouse on Amazon Prime. And I'm sitting on the couch with my Maplelea catalog that came with my Siladol, and we are watching Roadhouse together. And there is a young teenage character in that movie. Her name is Charlie, and she and her dad own and operate an independent bookstore. Now, I also, in years past, owned and operated an independent bookstore, and I am, as I've mentioned in other videos, a voracious reader, and so is my son. I raised children to be readers. And so we can really relate to this young character, Charlie, in this Roadhouse movie. And as we're watching the movie, and as I am flipping through this catalog, one of the Maplelea Friends dolls, which is similar to the American Girl Truly Me dolls. These are the unnamed dolls that come with blank stories, so you can create their story for them. But one of the Maplelea Friends dolls just really looks like Charlie. And I show my son the picture in the catalog, and I say, if we changed her hair a little bit, wouldn't she just look like this Charlie in this movie we're watching? And he agreed that she did. So the second Maplelea doll that joined my family was KMF 51, and I have named her Charlie. This is her picture in her journal that I added. So the Maplelea Friend dolls come with blank journals, and because of the literary connection and the literary background, I have named her Charlotte Elizabeth White. They don't tell us what her last name is in the movie, and so I've named her. I've imagined that if her last name was White, her parents, who clearly love books, might have named her Charlotte after Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. So they, in the journal, one of the things it asks is the story of my name. And so in Charlie's journal, I wrote on her behalf, I'm named after a book by E.B. White. We share our last name and love of books. And so I did research on the area in Florida where that story takes place. So even though this journal is set up for a Canadian, I've really transplanted her to Florida. In the movie, her mother is dead, so it is just her and her father. And her father has to work another job, which, having owned a bookstore, I understand that. These small bookstores are not really profitable. You're lucky if you're breaking even. But I still filled out the journal. I watched the movie several times, took notes, all the notes I could about her and her father, and tried to incorporate all those elements into her story in the journal. And one of the things they have you do is to draw a picture of yourself as a baby. And so in this journal, right here, this is a picture of her as a little, just learning to walk baby, and her father walking on the beach. And I imagine that her mom, when she was still alive, took that picture of her. So that has been fun as well. So not only am I encouraged to develop a story for my Maplelea Friends doll, they give me journaling prompts, basically blanks that I can fill in, and places that I can add pictures in here to do that. And it's got a lot of blanks in it, but it was really fun. And here you can actually see, here are some of the original notes I took as I watched and rewatched that movie to get notes about her that I could incorporate into her story. So her hair is up in two high ponytails. That is how she wears it in the movie. And I put it up when I first got her home, and I haven't taken it out. I originally ordered another wig for her that's a little longer, thinking I would need it. But she arrived before that wig did, so I tried putting the ponytails in her original hair, and they worked just fine. And I think she is so cute with those ponytails. So I have not rewigged her. This is her with her original wig and hair, but at this point, I don't imagine ever taking her hair out of these two ponytails, because that is the character's look from the movie. Charlie is um, just an amazing doll. So the third Maplelea doll to join my collection is the Camp Tanamakun Centennial doll. And this is a picture of the promotional sheet from the catalog. And as you can see, $230, limited to 100 pieces. Now, I don't know anything about this camp, not being Canadian, but look at that outfit. Is that not a stunning, historical, traditional camping outfit? But it was a lot of money to pay for a doll just because I fell in love with the outfit. So I'm browsing on eBay, and I find this doll, and it's actually, there were three face sculpt options you could pick from here. One of them is the doll that is my Charlie doll. I don't remember what the third one is. Oh, it was Sila. And then this is Leonie. This is one of their named girls sculpts, Leonie. Anyway, so I found this doll in box with all of her things for $100. And so that's how I got her. I ordered her from someone on eBay, and I went back and I tried to find that listing to see exactly when it was. But I don't know. But I do know it was early in January of 2025. So early in January 2025, I got this doll. And I've got some live pictures over here as well. So, editing here, but the shoes. The shoes on this doll are just something. And I already mentioned how nice I think the Maplelea shoes are in general, but these are incredible shoes. And I remember when watching on Diz Blaine's channel, when he got this doll, he was like, I really just got this doll for the shoes, which is a hysterical thing to say about a $230 doll. But I definitely understand it. The shoes are just something else. Okay, so now I have three Maplelea dolls. I have Sila, I have Charlie, and I have this Camp Tanamakun doll, who is a Leonie doll. But because I got Leonie in this non-traditional way, I got a blank journal. I don't have Leonie's story. I don't have her meat outfit. I don't have anything about her. I don't know anything about Leonie. But I need a little more. I would like a little more clothes and this kind of thing. And so on Etsy, there was somebody selling these lots of clothing. There were 2 or 3 lots for Leonie and one that was clothing for Alexi. They were all the same seller, these 4 lots of things at very reasonable prices. And so I bought all 4 lots of those clothing. And when that clothing came, I got journals for both Leonie and Alexi. And so this is how I have learned their story. And it's given me a place as I've added more clothing to my list, to my collection, a place to file the sheets that come with them. Every outfit from Maplelea comes with a page to add to your story journal. And sometimes it's about nature, sometimes it's about the article of clothing and its history itself, sometimes it's just about something of interest in the area. But every doll now has its own journal, and as I add to the collections, I'm reading and adding those journal pages to the various journals. And so this is one of the outfits that I bought in that original collection, and it came to me just like this, taped to Leonie's journal page with a photo and notes about it. So it was wonderful. The collector I bought it from, or who was downsizing, had done a wonderful job keeping track of it. But that is how I ended up with this beautiful collector doll, but also Leonie in my collection of Maplelea dolls. So I don't have to tell you that you've probably already figured out that getting this collection of Leonie clothing and journal and one collection of Alexi and her journal opens up the Pandora's box of, well, what about Alexi? Alexi was not the next Maplelea doll that I added to my collection, but because I've introduced her to you through Leonie, I'll go ahead and talk about her now, and then I'll come back to the doll that joined my collection in between Leonie and Alexi. So Alexi is a Toronto girl. She lives in a very wonderfully diverse neighborhood in Toronto. So she has lots of wonderful experiences, all of which are recounted in her journal pages. And as you read through and look at her journal, you can see that I think she is meant to be ethnically ambiguous. It is unclear what her ethnic heritage is, although in the pictures, her mom and her mom's mom are illustrated as having darker skin than her father. So they could be Hispanic, they could be Indian, they could be, they could be lots of anything. So that's what I mean by ambiguous. But clearly not as white as Leonie and her French background, or as white as Brianna and her Ukrainian background, but ethnically. And as I looked at the Maplelea catalog and the Alexi doll, I really thought that she was pretty white. And I have plenty of white dolls in my collection, and being married into a Mexican family and wanting to not have my collection be so Caucasian, I really thought it would be good to lean into that. So in my mind, I wanted Alexi's mom and grandma to be Hispanic, and so I wanted Alexi to reflect that. So since I didn't have the Alexi doll, I really had come by her story backwards through buying the collections, through trying to get things for Leonie. As I looked at the Maplelea website and catalog, I decided that instead of buying the doll that is designated and named Alexi, I would buy KMF 49. So KMF 49, one of the Friends dolls, and she would be Alexi in my collection. So whenever I buy an outfit that is made to be Alexi, or I'm adding to the story of Alexi in my collection, that is this doll, KMF 49. And she came to live with me on February 28th of 2025. So you can see how rapidly my Maplelea collection went from zero to too many in this very short period of time. And so, like so many things, you get sucked in, and a couple of these things happened in a backwards way. But again, this is just a beautiful doll. Look at her face sculpt. I did pierce her ears. She didn't come with pierced ears, but that is very traditional in the Mexican culture, and I want my dolls to reflect that. So Leonie's story and Alexi's story came together in my collection with the addition of the Kanamakoon Leonie mold doll, and then this KMF 49, which became my Alexi doll. I think most doll collectors have a doll that they consider to be their mini-me. And in the Maplelea collection, Charlesy was the doll that really spoke to me as closest to being my mini-me. She's very much lives in a rural area in Prince Edward Island. She is colorful and outgoing, which I tend to be. And although you can't really tell here on YouTube, my hair looks darker, I think, online. My hair, given the tiniest amount of sun, bleaches out to the same color as Charlesy's. At least it did when I was young like her. My mom's people are 100% Danish heritage, and my dad is half Italian. But my skin is very fair, just like Charlesy's skin, although I do tan easily and have rarely burned, and I think that part comes from my father. And like I said, my hair is often darker, but with the tiniest bit of sun, it bleaches out and looks an awful lot like Charlesy's hair. So Charlesy joined my collection to be my mini-me, and not just the doll, but you know, the whole rural lifestyle, the chickens, the goats, those kinds of things. I don't have the doll Brienne, but Brienne also has a rural lifestyle, and so we have I have purchased the cow, and we have the gray pony that belongs to Brienne. So all the Maplelea animals that have joined my collection really fit into the whole mini-me vignettes that I create with Charlesy, and then the doll that is my husband's mini-me, which I will introduce you to here in a little bit. Charlesy's eyes, depending on when you got your Charlesy or which version of Charlesy you have, they range from like an aquamarine to an almost purple, and they really are photochromatic. I mean, depending on the light of the room you're in, the color of her eyes change. And this is something that I didn't know until I got her home, really, and then later I saw other people comment on her eye color. Some people find her eye color troublesome. But both my son and I have photochromatic eyes. I mean, technically you would call our eyes hazel, but they really change color. They change color based on lighting. They change color based on the clothing we're wearing. My son would probably tell you mine changed color based on my mood. I don't know about that. But in any event, this feature of Charlesy also matches me. So she has been a really good mini-me. Now, I love her stories. Her stories are great. Her clothing, she's got a grandma in England who knits for her. She's got a couple of beautifully knitted cardigans. And I could just go on and on about the quality of the Maplelea clothing. And I saw someone refer to them as American Girl knockoffs, and I would just say absolutely not. These dolls stand on their own from a quality standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, and definitely from the commitment of the company to providing a quality, usable product to its customer base. Anyway, so yeah, in the catalog, Charlesy, I showed you her picture at the very beginning. She's currently on the front of the current catalog. But in my collection, and as you watch my videos, you will often see her as my mini-me. So when the Maplelea catalog came out last September, there were 9 brand new sculpts in the Maplelea Friends line. And the last 2 Maplelea dolls in my collection are from that group of 9 new sculpts. The first one I want to talk to you about is KMF 52, and he is the only boy doll in my collection. I ordered him to be my husband's mini-me, so when I set up little scenes with the animals or doing various things or put us in matching clothes, I had somebody to be him. My husband is 100% Mexican, and I've lived here in Mexico a little over a year now. And if you've watched my video, The Colors of Mexico, you know that the genetic diversity here is rich, complex, and hundreds of years old. And so this doll's complexion might be a little dark for my husband's complexion, but truly not really. My husband works outside a lot, and it doesn't take that much sun for him to actually be darker than what this doll is at its normal baseline. So even though this is considered by Maplelea to be the black mold, I really think of him as Mexican. And the curly hair is absolutely accurate, particularly when my husband was younger. As he's gotten older, he started to lose his hair, so he tends to wear it, you know, butched off, shaved off now. I really miss those curls. And so I enjoy those curls on the mini-me doll. This doll is the doll that got me started sewing for dolls. There's a whole story about trying to get these last 2 dolls to me here in Mexico. When I placed an order from this catalog, I tried to get it down here. I ordered in early December. I didn't receive the dolls till late January or early February, and the clothes never did come. The clothes that I ordered had to be returned to Canada. Then they were shipped to where I can get mail in the United States. And then when I was home visiting in March, I brought that clothes back here to Mexico with me. So it was very complicated. So here I am. I did get the 2 dolls. And this being the only boy doll, I really don't have anything for him to wear other than his meat outfit. I do have Kit's overalls and some of those kind of tomboyish outfits. But anyway, so this doll is responsible for me sewing for my dolls. And so the first thing I made for him was a pair of jeans, and then I made him a camo outfit, and all of his clothing that I've made is made from stuff that would have gone to the trash because I'd patched my husband's work clothing so much it couldn't be patched anymore. So you take those few pieces that are left from the back of the legs, but dolls are not very big, and I was able to make some clothing. So in addition to being my husband's mini-me, he's given me a reason to do some other things, design and sew for my dolls, and I appreciate that about him. So this is Ephraim. I mentioned that one of the YouTube creators responsible for sending me down the Maplelea rabbit hole is Diz Blaine. And this last doll in my collection is KMF 57. And she is, well, of all of the dolls in my collection, she is absolutely my favorite. She is so beautiful. I am disappointed with these pictures that I have of her. She does not photograph the way she needs to. You cannot see how absolutely beautiful she is, with her medium complexion, her delicate freckles, the most delicate freckles across her nose, her soft eyelashes, She is just beautiful. Her wig is thick and wonderful. And the story behind the design of this doll is that, I think Diz Blaine has to be one of Maple Leaf's best customers. As near as I can tell, he's bought every piece of clothing that they have put out in the last couple of years. And also has customized dolls. And if you watch his channel, he'll buy multiple dolls and then he changes them up with different eyes and different wigs. And somewhere in there, they asked him for photos of a custom boy doll that he made. And my husband's mini-me KMF52 is very similar to a custom boy doll that Blaine made. And then they asked him what his ideal doll would be. And he rattles off to them, this sculpt, this skin tone, freckles, this eye color, this wig type. And they write it all down and they made it. And that became KMF 57. And so watching Blaine in his excitement, both about, his involvement in the creation of this doll, but then when he gets it and he opens it, and we find out that he picked all of these things in honor of his niece, and her name was Avery. And so he just loves his Avery doll, and he shares her on his channel multiple times. And we start thinking about this doll as Avery. And so I really wanted to add her to my collection. And when she came at the same time as my husband's mini-me doll. Like I said, in person, she is just even more beautiful than you can imagine based on the catalog photos. And I just couldn't think of her as being anybody but Avery. So my KMF 57 is also Avery, just like Diz Blaine's KMF 57. If you are thinking about adding a friend's doll to your collection and you aren't sure which one, I would strongly recommend this girly. Someone recently asked about, well, should I add a name doll or a friend's doll first? And just remember that when the friend's dolls sell out, they are gone. So I do not think that this doll will be around forever. So if you want to add a friend's doll, she would be my recommendation to you. Of all the dolls I own, this is my favorite. And, on any given day, I think every one of my dolls is beautiful. But there is just something precious about this doll. Her sculpt, her face, and the way she makes my heart feel. So that is my Maplelea collection. Everybody that I have clothes and stories and more things, and you'll see them if you continue to watch shows on this channel. But that's what I have to tell you about today. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.